these rights, laws, and governments. So first, an introduction. Thank you, Rhiannon, for the warm welcome and also the land acknowledgements there. And also thank you to Women's Shelter Canada for involving Neil Squire in this tech safety initiative. Oops, we'll come back here. So Neil Squire's a Canadian national non-for-profit organisation that empowers Canadians with disabilities through the use of computers-based assistive technologies and research and development and various employment programs. As far as the disclosures are concerned, we would like to acknowledge that we are employed by Neil Squire, and Women's Shelter Canada contacted us to do this presentation. During the presentation, we may talk about various products and software items. The presenters have no financial interests or affiliations relating to the products or software discussed. And we would like to thank Women's Shelter Canada for and the Tech Safety Project for involving us in this project and inviting us to carry out this webinar today. We also, for their efforts in working towards accessibility for this presentation, including providing the sign language interpreter. So working on the project have been my colleagues Zorana Sinek and Gemma Pollock, both occupational therapists, and myself. At Neil Squire, Zorana, Gemma, and I specialise in working with clients with a variety of disabilities, carrying out ergonomic and assistive technology assessments, assistive technology training, case management, and consulting services. I'll be delivering the presentation today, and we will have chat and questions throughout. So if you're open to answer, if you want to ask questions, I'll answer questions through the chat, and we can also perhaps open up the mics towards the end if there's anyone has any questions concerning some of the topics I'm going to talk about today. So first, a bit about myself. My name's Gordon Watt. I was originally from Scotland, hence the Scottish accent. I will try to speak slowly for the sign language interpreter, and the closed captions will hopefully understand what I'm saying. I apologise in advance if they don't. For the past 13 years, I've had an association with Neil Squire, firstly as a volunteer, and then as distance training coordinator and the coordinator of the Distance Computer Comfort Programme. But that's not my only role. Many people have asked me what my role is at Neil Squire, and some say I'm a man of many hats because I'm involved in quite a few ongoing projects. I'm talking to you today as a capacity of the administrator of the accessibility at Neil Squire of some of their documents and forms. So let's talk about what we're going to cover today. Okay, there's 5 sort of main objectives, learning objectives that we're going to be covering. The first one is, what is accessibility? Why is accessibility important? What is an accessible document? And the basics of accessibility, and some accessibility checks that you can do, which is important because you may be carrying out these particular checks using your own authoring tools themselves. Okay, let's start with what is accessibility and why is it important. So the definition of accessibility is where accessibility is a general term used to describe a degree to which a product, service, or environment can be accessed or used by an individual, regardless of their physical or cognitive ability. Some examples of accessibility that you may have came across before, okay, include a wide range of things like ramps for accessing buildings, closed captioning on TV, and also perhaps you've not noticed them before, but if you enter a lift or an elevator, you'll see those little braille dots just below the numbers on to choose the floors of the you're going to. Those are all forms of accessibility. Why is accessibility important? Okay, well, according to Statistics Canada, back in 2017, they carried out the Canadian Survey on Disability, and about 6.2 million individuals aged 15 or over had one or more disabilities, which is about 22% of the population. This means, depending on what accessibility you or your organisation has to offer, a significant portion of the potential users may not be able to access your services or products. Focusing on the sort of written communication, one of the best ways to introduce accessibility to your own organisation is to make your documents and other written communication more accessible. So what is an accessible document? An accessible document is a document created to be as easily readable by a sighted reader as someone with a disability. Documents need to meet certain common accessibility standards, such as Web Content Accessible Guidelines, WCAG 2.0, and the newer 2.1, and PDF UA, which is Universal Access, or ISO 14289. Making a document accessible is easiest when you are at the early stages of creating a document. So what are the basic steps to accessibility? When you create a document, there are some basic steps that you should follow in order to assure your content is accessible. The core steps needed for accessibility are the same regardless of the type of document that we're talking about. So I've put these I've sort of talked about, or I'm going to be talking about, three different types of document. So we're talking about PDF files, or portable document format files. We're also talking about Word documents, and to a certain extent, the web pages as well. Now, I'm not sure how many people are responsible for administering web pages, but what I'm going to be doing today is covering the sort of the most basic forms of accessibility, and if you can try and introduce these into your own documents and also the web pages, you should find that it will help improve the accessibility of the documents you're working with on a day-to-day basis. So we're going to go on and talk about the different steps needed to sort of make your document more accessible. The first one that is useful is headings. So headings in documents, you might not necessarily think of headings as being accessible, but one of the things is that it's they're used to help sort of identify elements within the document, and they can. In this particular instance, the example I've given here, I'm sort of concentrating on Microsoft Word because I think that's probably going to be the basis for the majority of the people who are here today. And one of the sort of one of the hold on a minute. Okay, so one of the features of Microsoft Word that allows you to sort of specify that the headings is the style section. Okay, so when within Word you can set up the title, the heading, heading 1, heading 2, and when you set these particular headings up, it will allow you to people with what they call screen readers to navigate through the document. Okay, and also it's important the heading styles need to have slightly bigger text so that it makes it easier for people to read. Now, what do I mean by a screen reader? Okay, screen readers are software that will read out the content of the screen for people who have got low vision and also who've got who are blind. When you correctly define the headings, They will allow you to sort of navigate through the screens, and by using screen readers, it makes it easier for people who are blind to navigate through the document quickly. Virtually every document that has includes the formatting and subheadings there. So I will, if we've got time towards the end, I will show you some examples of where to go to set up these headings, and we can concentrate on that a little bit. Okay, the next one we've got here is images. Okay, and this is probably one of the most important ones when it comes to web pages as well. There's something called alternative text, which when you put an image into a particular document you're working on, alternative text provides a way to communicate the content of the graphics to and images to a person who can't see it. Okay, alternative text just gives you enough information to communicate without burdening the user with sort of unnecessary text, and it's also important to note that most authoring tools will allow this particular form of alternative text communication. In Word, in the example there, when you right-hand click on an image once you've added it in, you can actually select the alternative text and write the text in there yourself. Now, there are some guidelines as far as the alternative text is concerned. If the image is purely decorative, if you get borders and things like that as part of the image, then they don't have any sort of information that to convey, then what you can do is you can mark it as something called decorative, and it means that the screen reader that you're working with actually will skip that particular image. When it comes to actually writing the text for the images that are important, you need to be descriptive and specific. Okay, consider the length of the description when you're actually putting the text in there. As it says here, most popular screen readers are going to cut the text off at about 125 characters. So you have to. It's almost like writing a text, if you like, where you're or a Twitter a description. You've got a short number of characters to actually work with. Also, when you're working with the images, you need to make sure that you don't have any colored backgrounds or watermarks, because people with low vision will find it difficult to read the text on those pages, and also it makes the documents unreadable themselves. And the other thing that's important as well when it comes to images is text boxes and word art within Word are two items that are inaccessible to screen readers. So if you're putting a picture into a document and you put a text box over the top of it, and there's a fairly detailed description in the text box, you're going to find that the screen reader is not going to be able to read it properly. So consideration for these the images that you're putting in at the beginning of the design of your documents is important. Okay. The next one that we need to sort of explore is the hyperlinks. Okay. When you're working with hyperlinks to other documents, maybe links within the same document, or it could be links out to the internet. When you're going through, do not capitalize the letters, and don't include the full web addresses as a link, because what happens is the screen reader will read it capitalized text letter by letter. When you're reading it, it'll actually read out the whole web address there. Okay. A few other things to try and implement. Try not saying click here or more information as a title for your particular link. As an example we've got here, it says click here to find out more information about Microsoft Word. It's when you say click here, it's not going to be very good for the person actually reading the document. And always make sure that the link text is less than 100 characters. So with the link that's there for click here, change the click here to something else that's a bit more descriptive, so that when the person is reading it using the screen reader, they'll be able to understand that that's a link to more information rather than just click here. Um, Ensuring that the hyperlink has context and describes where it actually leads is important. Okay, so for example, we've got here the link to Microsoft Office, and it's formatted there properly. And also, when it comes to you pointing to say a report or another PDF file, another document, don't include the link down. The link directly from the web link. I had a gentleman recently who he was trying to download a manual for a program, and when he clicked on the link to the program, or the link to the document downloaded, but he didn't, because he was using a screen reader, he didn't actually see that the document had downloaded properly. And when he went to his downloads folder, he had 12 copies of the same document there. So it's important when you're putting hyperlinks into your documents that you make sure that the links are descriptive enough to show where, if it is a document, that you put the document name in there and it's formatted properly. The next one that we've got here is fonts. Now, fonts are important when it comes to people with low vision, and also as far as the screen reader is concerned as well. It's important to have the fonts selected properly. So the default fonts within Microsoft Word, for example, are too small. Okay, we've got size 11. The Calibri was the version I had. So you've got to have it 12 points or higher. So that's a sort of standard, and be consistent with your font throughout the document. Quite a lot of businesses and maybe small businesses include something called the company font. It's the font that they would use for all their communication to make it sort of standardized. And if you can modify your font so that you're actually including these particular rules here into your fonts, then it means you don't have to do too much work when you're compiling your documents. I would say always use a sans serif font, something like Arial, Calibri, Helvetica, or Verdana. Using italics and uppercase for emphasis isn't recommended, as is underlining, because they don't get picked up within the screen readers. And a tip for you is that going back to what I was talking about before, the styles feature within Microsoft Word is actually useful to set these particular fonts up so that you can choose the particular font from the style section before you start typing up the document, and then at least you don't have to go back and change any of the text later on. Now, also related to the font is color and contrast. Okay, color and contrast is important because when you are using the appropriate sort of color and contrast, for example, black and white, it makes the text sort of stand out on the page, and also on the documents that you're the web documents you're producing. You've got to make sure that when you are conveying the information for that's actually contained on the web page or on the document, that it can be conveyed with color as well as without color. It's important. That's important, and also this is probably the most important thing. The contrast between the background color and the foreground color needs to have a ratio of between 7 to 1. So in this particular example here, we've got several sort of color contrasts here where the contrast ratio is not 7 to 1, and you'll find that the people with low vision will find it difficult to read the foreground text on the background color that's there. The one that sticks out the most is the contrast ratio at the end there, which is 17.6 to 1, which is quite high, and it should be anything higher than 7. Now, if you're not sure about the colors that you're going to choose, there is the contrast checker from WebAIM that you can actually use, and if you can to check sort of web pages. But there's also, when you go there, you can also check the color contrast for your documents as well. Now, the link to that particular checker is within the toolkit that we've produced as part of this project, that I believe Rhiannon is going to be giving you out access to shortly. The next thing that's important as well is the the lists as well. So when you're listing something out as part of the document, screen readers have the ability to go in and formulate the fact that there is a list of information you're being presented with. So when you are authoring your particular documents, use the particular features of the program to produce your ordered and unordered lists, so that it can go through, and when your screen readers are working, they'll be able to identify the lists that are there, and also the fact that there's so many items within that particular list. Another element as far as documents are concerned is tables. Okay, so when you're creating a table, I would say avoid them if you can. If the information can be displayed in another format, then avoid it. If you have to use a table, you've got to make sure that when tables are displaying information, that there's some sort of relationship between the data. So you can't, sort of mix the information around it within the table itself. And the table should not be used to control the layout of the document. Okay, that makes it a bit more difficult for screen readers to read. What I mean by controlling the layout of the document is sometimes it's quite easy to put a frame, or if you wanted a frame round about some information, it's quite easy to create a table and put the information into it. But when a screen reader hits that particular information, the person who is reading the document is seeing that there's a table there, but the information that's being presented doesn't relate to the table. So you need to make sure that when you're using it, you've got to use it for a specific purpose rather than just to control the layout of the document. When it comes to putting a table in, try and make it as simple as possible. Okay, if the information within the table is complex, consider breaking it up into smaller tables if you need to, okay, with a different heading for each. And a key to making tables accessible to the screen reader is that users have got to clearly identify the column headers and also the row headers to avoid multiple multiple headers and column headers themselves. Microsoft Word can handle basic tables, okay, but if you're having to do more complex tables, you would need to take the document into Adobe Acrobat in order to mark up the table using the markup language properly there. I would suggest, so going back to what I suggested at the beginning, use the tables wisely. Make sure that you if you can avoid them. If not, then you need to go through and make sure the table is simple enough for the reader to understand. A few other considerations when it comes to your documents. Generally, forms aren't accessible within Word. Okay, in order to sort of create the actual form itself, you have to move across and actually work with Adobe Acrobat. They've got tools within Adobe Acrobat in order to recognize what the layout of the form is, and it will create a fillable form for you. Okay, now I don't have enough time today to go through the ins and outs of how to create a fillable form with you, but I have put a link to a tutorial within the toolkit which will allow you to take things further in your own time, and it runs through the bits and pieces that you would need to do. Obviously, we need to design the form with sections. So, for example, when you're doing you can actually do the design with underscores, which will it makes it easier to identify the actual fields within the forms themselves. So it's a good idea to work on the design in Word first, and then create your PDF file. And from that, the recognition within Adobe Acrobat is the way that the program would actually work. Another thing is don't manually type, so when it comes to headers and footers, don't manually type the page numbers. There is a function within Microsoft Word to insert the page numbers themselves, and it makes it easier for the screen reader to actually read that information. Some screen readers will miss that if you're actually manually typing the number. So make sure that you're using the insert function in there. Now, after working our way through all of those particular considerations, the next consideration we need to make is how you create the PDF file. Okay, so moving on to talking about PDF files here. So with what you've done as far as creating the document is concerned, if you adopt the rules that I've sort of suggested there, you've got an accessible Word document. Okay. To make it even more accessible to more people, converting it to a PDF file or portable document format file is something that is recommended as well. And if I'm not sure how many people actually know what portable document format files are, but PDF files make the files look exactly the same on the screen as they would do if they were printed out. That's basically what they would do. So, in order for you to create the PDF file, as it says here, it's best to use the Save As function within Word. Okay, so when you're going in and you're saving the Word itself, on the screen here, we've got the when you're saving the document, automatically it's going to save it as a docx file, but you can choose to use the little drop down arrow to the right hand side to change it to a PDF file itself. And when you save it as a PDF, all the formatting that you've actually went through and added in the headings, the fonts, text, and everything, are all sort of preserved, so that it can be taken into Acrobat and further worked on if necessary. The other option that we've got here is when you're saving it as a depending on whether you've got Adobe Acrobat installed or not, Adobe Acrobat will have its own the plugin called the Save As Adobe PDF. You can save it as that as well, and also that will also preserve any formatting you've actually put in. What I would suggest you do not do is to convert it to a PDF. Sometimes when you print something out, Microsoft and their wisdom, decided to add Microsoft Print to PDF. I would suggest not using that because when you print out using the PDF, Microsoft Print to PDF, you'll find that it destroys all of the accessibility. Okay, so you need to make sure so any hyperlinks, any headings, anything like that are all destroyed, and all you will get is when you open up the document in a screen reader, you'll get blank document. Basically, that's what it says because it's just treating it as an image rather than as the text that was there. So you need to make sure that you do not send it to the print PDF. So always save it as a PDF itself. Now, once you've went through all of the adding and all the formatting, what do you do to check to make sure everything is okay with the document? Okay, so these are going to be accessibility checks that you're going to be using. The first one that we've got here is the accessibility check that you can use within Microsoft Word. So under the review section, in the same section that you would use for doing your spell checks, there is something called Check Accessibility, which is a tool that you can turn on. You can have it on running all the time if you want. On the actually creates a toolbar down the right hand side of the document. And what it allows you to do is to inspect any sort of issues that low vision and vision impaired individuals may have when they're actually reading the document. So in this particular instance here, we've got a screenshot where the document has not had any alternative text written for any of these documents. So when you click on each one of the pictures there, it'll take you to the page within the document where the alternative text is missing. It actually highlights it, and it'll give you an opportunity to add that alternative text in. Now, there's a number of other options that you may find you come across when you're working your way through the documents. This particular tool is available within Word. It's also actually available within PowerPoint. I was using it myself to make the PowerPoint presentation accessible as well. So you can actually run through it with it, and you can see the issues that you may have. And to cut down on the amount of accessibility issues you may have, by keeping the accessibility checker on at the beginning, if you know that the document is intended for someone who's or it's intended for being accessible, then have got the ability to go in and turn that on and just keep an eye on the particular pages you're working on themselves. Now, that's one check. I would suggest that if you're intending creating PDF files, run through this check first to make sure that there's no issues there. And then the next check that you can actually do is within Adobe Acrobat itself. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into Adobe Acrobat because it's a completely different more advanced bit of software, but within Adobe Acrobat itself, there is an accessibility section, which is we've got the toolbar down the right hand side here, and there is an accessibility section that you can add in, and there is an option called full check. When you select it, it will allow you to run this particular report on the right hand side here. When you run that report, if you have done things properly within Word, you should get a completely clear report. Okay, there shouldn't be anything comes up. However, in the seconds page here, we've got the something that shows you the different issues that tend to crop up during the reports themselves. The two that are coming up here, the logical reading order and the color contrast, these are things that are related to how Dragon navigates, sorry, not Dragon, how JAWS and NVDA actually read through the documents themselves. So you've got to keep an eye on the sort of reading order of the document itself when you're working your way through it. And also titles and primary language are important as well. Sometimes if you find that you don't set the language properly, if the language is set French, for example, when you open up the program or the document within JAWS and NVDA, it presumes that the document is in French and will try and read it in the French language. And if you've ever heard the sort of pronunciation that comes up, you might find that there's difficulties there. So you want to make sure that the document language is correct there, and also that it's got a meaningful title, because that will be the first thing that will actually be read within the screen reading program itself. So moving on to sort of conclusions. Okay, I would suggest that when you're creating your documents, okay, always ask yourself the following questions. What would it be like to hear the document you're creating? Okay. If the document is layered with graphics, so for example, you've got text over the top of an image, can they be fused together, or if there is any issues and instances like that? Have you added alternative text to each image that you've and graphic that you've to describe it? And do you is there somebody there to help you, the reader of the document, obviously, in case they have difficulty reading the document itself? And does the layout of the document have a logical structure and is easy to follow? Okay, if you can answer yes to all of these questions, as far as they being asked, then you should have a fairly accessible document. My last word, as far as the the document's concerned is beginning now and throughout thought beginning now to thoughtfully create your documents will make accessibility easier for everyone in the future. So when you start off designing new documents for your day-to-day use, um, if you built in the accessibility at that particular point, then it means that you won't have as much work to do in the future when it comes to making your documents accessible. Obviously, if your documents are not accessible just now, you might need to go back and you'll go through and following some of the rules that I've given you today, you'll be able to make the documents more accessible. So just a quick note on the sort of resources. We've put together 6 different documents themselves for the project we're working on. Today's talk covers the documents and websites. So I've got some example. We've covered some things a bit more within the accessibility of the documents, number 8.3 and 8.4. So have a look at those when you get them, and if they contain some really important links to some of the things that we've been talking about today, and also it gives you some further information so you can use this as a sort of stepping off point onto your sort of journey to your sort of accessibility itself. Okay, and we do have some time left just now, so if you're I'm open to doing some questions, just quick questions and answers, if we've got any questions in the chat or anything at all.
We do. Thank you so much, Gordon, for going through all of that. There were a lot of questions in the chat about sharing resources, video recordings, and PowerPoint presentations. So from my understanding, we are going to be sharing a PDF copy of the PowerPoint out to participants in a follow-up email, as well as the PDF versions of the documents that Gordon just mentioned on the screen there. We do have one question about screen reader applications, and could you share with us some examples of good ones that exist that perhaps shelters and transition houses can use when
Okay,
supporting?
I've got 2 in mind at the moment. Okay, the first one is JAWS, which is for Windows, and it's a rather expensive program. However, you do get through Freedom Scientific, the company that do the program, you do get a 40-minute trial. So you can download a 40-minute trial to trial out your documents. So if you were to you wanted to use that particular program, then you could download the trial and run your documents through it itself. And another screen reading program is NVDA, which is also it's actually free as well. And you can download that and install it and run it through. The on both of the websites, they do have fairly comprehensive lists of commands and things like that. But even the most basic of user can use the cursor control arrows on their keyboards to navigate through the document themselves. So it's actually quite an easy way to run through it. So I would suggest trialing out both of those if you want. I believe that there might be shortcuts with links to the programs in the pack. If there's not, then we can maybe update it just to add the links in. I don't know. Gemma can nod her head if there was in the pack. I think there might have been. So I think there could be.
Gemma has added something. Do you want to add that?
Yeah, I just clarified. So that 40-minute trial of JAWS is actually refreshed every time you reboot the computer.
Yeah.
So that is something to consider just to get started with it or have access to it. Something to note too is, a lot of people who are using screen reader programs hopefully would have be introduced to them and familiar with them before. So if somebody is using a screen reader, they may have their own device that they can use and access the resources that they have. But if someone's completely new to reading things aloud, on that list of resources toolkit we have, there are some links into technology resources throughout Canada for people with disabilities. So if somebody interacts with you who has really low knowledge of the technology that they have, perhaps referring them to one of those other programs is a good place to start. I'm going to just put also the link for the NVDA software in the chat too. I have the right one here, and this is a free program. But the difference is the keyboard commands that someone would use for JAWS is different than NVDA. There's also Windows Narrator is built in as a screen reader. But that it also has a bit different commands than all of these different programs. So it gets a little complicated after a while. But the processes Gordon went through really show if you can make the document good enough to work with a program like JAWS, any other program that the person will use or might be using, it should work with that too. So it's kind of like doing that, that big universal design of the document.
Okay. As we have some time, I've actually brought up a Word document here, and I was just going to run over a couple of the things that I was talking about during the course of the presentation here. So the style section that I was talking about is this one here. So you've actually got the ability in the style section to set up your fonts in advance when you're working with the documents. So while you can go in and you can change your fonts and the font sizes and the having bold, italics, underline in the font section here, within each one of these options here, and you can actually save save them under different names if you want. When you right hand click on each one of these and go into modify, and it brings up the bar here, you can actually specify in here what your particular font is, the size. So in this particular instance, the normal font that we used to create the documents here was Arial size 12. And it gives you the opportunity to add that to the gallery there, and you can change the name up at the top. So if you wanted something specific for doing your accessibility, you could have that set up there. And then we've also got in here, we've also got the headings, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. So when these are actually used within the documents, the screen reading program will actually identify these as the headings. And if just as an aside, if you were creating a table of contents as well, having used these particular headings here, the table of contents, which is underneath the, if I remember correctly, hold on, references section, and here, well, you can actually create the table of contents automatically using the headings when you've went through and you've created them themselves. So that's one thing that you can sort of concentrate on. Is setting up the headings there. And the other thing was the actual accessibility checker. Underneath review, alongside the spell check, we've got the accessibility checker here. And when you turn it on, it appears down the side there. So we don't have any accessibility issues here at the side here. But say, for example, we had, let's just see if I can find a picture here. There's a picture there. So when we hover over the top of this just now, we can get the alternative text. So if I right hand click and go into where's the alternative text here? Hold on. Let's see, view alternative text. So in this particular instance, on the side there, we've got AAC device as the alternative text for this. You've got the ability to generate the text because the program has been so more advanced now. It will look at the picture and it can identify what it is, and it will try and write a description for you. But if I was to take out this description here just now, and we'll just close that window just now, it will now come up with an error indicating that picture followed by the number doesn't have any alternative text. So what we can do is look at the drop down menu here, and it'll give us the information underneath about what we can do to fix the problem. And if we add a description, it will automatically go to this picture and highlight it. And what we can do is just put in AAC device again. And then it means that when the screen reader comes back and looks at this particular document, it's going to see that that particular picture there is an AAC communication device there. Okay, so that's something that we can you can do to help. And this is the same, similar to what you can do for your pictures on your websites as well. So, for example, if you're using a program called WordPress for creating websites, there is a facility in there to allow you to add alternative text as well, so that it will mean that when the web page comes up, you'll get a description of what the particular picture is as well when you're navigating through it. That's something else that you can do there. So, so the goal when you're creating your Word documents and making your Word documents accessible is to make sure that there's no issues here. And if you and if you have that going on the right hand side there when you're actually working on your documents, then it means that you'll correct accessibility as you go along there. And just to sort of talk about the saving of the documents again, when you're saving the documents and you do file and then you do save as, what you want to do, in our particular instance, because we've got the documents on our OneDrive, the documents are saved automatically. But if we can save as a PDF document here, if we've got Adobe Acrobat installed, or the option that we've got here as well as saving you can save a copy of it, and up at the top here where it says Word document here, what you're going to do is use the little drop down arrow here and save it as PDF. If you save it as PDF, then it'll maintain any of the sort of the alternative text and all the other headings and things like that have been added. If you go through and if you try and print the document, for example, if we switch to print here, oops, it will come up on your print. You've got your normal conventional printer here, but down in the list here, there is the option for Microsoft Print to PDF. I would suggest not using that, because if you use that, it strips out everything. You'll still get the page that that's printed out, but the problem is that when the screen reader comes along, it's not going to see the text that's there. What's going to happen is it's going to come up as blank image because it strips out everything. So you need to be careful when you're creating the PDFs. If you follow the rules that I've sort of went through with you, then that's probably the best sort of setup that you can have there. So if you do find that when we went through bits and pieces we went through earlier on, if it was something that wasn't picked up, I believe Rhiannon will have access to the recording as well, so you can maybe run back through for anything that was missed.
Yeah, that's a great overview, Gordon, and I think a good way for people to get a sense of where to get things started.
Yeah.
That tip of starting your document with accessibility in mind is really big, because it does take more time to go back and fix it later. So I know everybody's very busy, and changing the way that you do your resources can be hard, but perhaps for the next one that you're going to create, maybe start fresh and input your information in this type of formatting.
Mm-hmm.
I see a note from Carmel as well, just commenting on other technologies. So yes, on MacBook, there's VoiceOver is the built-in screen reader. And Acrobat does have a read aloud feature. Within Microsoft Word, there's a read aloud feature as well. Web browsers have that more and more. It's more accessible and easier for people to get access to in a really wide variety of programs.
I would comment that those particular readers, though, they're not as complex as the the actual screen readers themselves.
No,
They'll actually
yeah,
they'll read the content out to you, but they don't identify individual elements of the documents themselves.
yes.
VoiceOver does, but the actual readers within Adobe Acrobat, things like that, they'll not do that. So
Yeah.
does anyone else have any other questions?
I know you mentioned this earlier, Gordon, but we see click here in emails and in PDFs and info sheets all the
Yeah,
time.
it's
Is it recommended that instead of doing that, the whole URL is posted, or is
so
it like the name of the document
so that would be
and the URL
it would
like
be
linked?
I would suggest that it would be the name of the document that you put in there. Okay, because what happens is when the screen reader hits that particular element of the document, it will identify that it's a web address and it will say what the name of the document is. So say for example, we're working just now on the
Yeah.
let's say, hold on, I'm just trying to get the name of the document. So we're working on common types of assistive technology. When this document's put up onto your website, when you're putting the link into that, what will happen is you'll get if when you put the link in, you'll have the web address there, that's going to be actually as a link. But when the screen reader comes to this, you'll see in the web page it will say this particular um, link is to a document called Common Types of Assistive Technology, and it will identify it as a web address. And then you can, if the person wants to, they can follow that particular link if they want, rather than having the full web address read out to them, which can sometimes be a bit tedious when it comes to running through, navigating through the documents. So as long as it's formatted properly, it should be okay.
I think on that slide Gordon had in the PowerPoint, there's a good example of what to write. So that will be shared. So I'd recommend referring back to that as an example, because all of this stuff I know is going to be really hard to remember. It was a lot of information,
I
especially
know
if it's very new. We really appreciate everyone's interest on this because it is really important.
so. I'll just go back to that current slide there. Hold up, we'll do. Let's see if we can come back to it.
And while you're doing that, are there any last questions for Gordon or Gemma or Joanna?
Hyperlinks. It was hyperlinks we were asking questions about. So this one here. So this one
Yeah.
here, where we'll get the link to Microsoft Office. So down at the bottom here, that's the way that the document link should, or link to the document or link to the website should actually be set up there. But you'll notice that when I hover over the top, it does say the actual Microsoft Office address there. So that's what you should have the hyperlink and make sure that it describes what the where you're actually going itself. So when it comes to the documents where you've got the downloads here, what you're going to be doing is making sure that somewhere before you click on the link, there's going to be a description of what is there, so that you know what you're actually getting. Otherwise, someone is going to be clicking on the link and doesn't know what they're going to be getting. So if it's an application form, for example, you want to make sure that the application form is part of the link, and it's also it gives you a rough idea. It could be you might be able to say PDF file at the end of it or something like that, in which case it means that the person then is expecting to find a download.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I hope it does.
Thanks, Gordon.
Okay. Anything
We're,
else?
It
doesn't
doesn't
look
look
like there's
like,
anything else.
yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything else. So, on behalf of Women's Shelters Canada, we want to thank your team for being here and sharing your knowledge and wisdom with all of our shelters and transition houses and anti-violence programs across the country. I'd like to thank Tammy and Danielle for interpreting for us. And folks, if you want to come back, these lovely folks are going to be here again next week on March the 6th to talk about how to set up your shared computers that you might have within your shelter or transition house or your anti-violence program, your community program, how to set up your shared workstation to be more accessible for the survivors that you're supporting. So thank you so much. We will send out all of the following information that we promised, and we hope to see you back on March the 6th. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.